Hey guys, Pounded Rocks checking in, and I'm very sorry about not doing a video in the last 2 weeks. I was actually supposed to do a video yesterday, but I screwed up my calendar, and apparently I wasn't hanging out at the shop. I wasn't hanging out over at Justin's shop last night, so I drove all the way over there to find out that we weren't hanging out that night. Dumb me, but hey, live and learn. Pathfinder pickup. All I've done so far is continue working on the wire harness. I now have the injector connectors spliced in and the wires stretched. I just gotta wrap them around the back of the blower and hook them up to the wire harness or to the main harness, and that part of it's done. The idle air control motor I also have to work in. It's a different connector, different motor. I gotta make sure that I'm not wiring it backwards. I don't want it to like choke off the air when you really should be giving it air. So I got to work that into the mix. I did install the power steering pump. I went with an Xterra power steering pump that I got from the Junkyard a couple weeks ago. Sorry, I got to itch my nose here. So I ended up going back and getting the power steering pump bracket as well, because the one that I showed you in the previous video had a broken off bolt, and the one that I found in the yard was in just as good a shape and no broken bolts. So for $2 more, I could have one where I don't have to dick around with drilling out holes and stuff. I'd rather do it that way. I still have to get a AC pump bracket or repair the one that I have. That's coming soon. But because the power steering pump bracket is good, I was able to get the Xterra pump onto the engine, and the belt tensioner is also in place as well. The only thing I had to do is I had to pull the banjo bolt out for the main pressure line. So you can use a Pathfinder pressure line going into an Xterra pump. It's not going to line up exactly the same way because the lines are different between the two trucks. There's a little like peg on the line that's supposed to hold it in position against the bracket. That peg doesn't, if you'd have to twist the line all up to get that peg to line up with the new pump. So what you do is you just tighten the banjo bolt up properly, check for leaks, and if you have to tighten it more, you can tighten it more. It's supposed to just hold the line in place, so you can just tighten the banjo bolt and it pulls everything together. But I didn't see any problems there. I also stretched the return lines. There's two return lines, and one's 5/8 and the other one's 3/8. I also stretched those long enough to compensate for the body lift. So power steering is all set and ready to go. That's done. I shoehorned one of the passenger side exhaust header in. That's going to need a little bit of love. I don't know why it fits differently on this truck. It shouldn't. It came off of a WD21 that had a 3.3 swap in it. There's really no difference. I didn't change anything. It just looks like I'm going to have to notch a little bit in the transmission. One of the cooling fins on the transmission's got to get notched, and I might have to bang a dent into the actual header itself to clear the transmission. I also have to change the slave cylinder for the clutch. Because of the way the line comes off of that, there's no way for me to get the line to go over to where it's supposed to mount on the frame without having it touch the header. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to go with a two-wheel drive slave cylinder. I have one off of that 86 hardbody that I had a bunch of years ago, where the cab for Pathfinder pickup came from. I saved the transmission, and it had a slave cylinder on it. So I'm going to test fit that slave cylinder. The hose comes out differently. It's also not a banjo bolt. It's a straight up regular brake line type fitting, a pipe thread fitting. So I'm going to try that, and if that works, then I'm just going to make a brake line and then have a custom regular brake hose made to the length that I need. And instead of having it go across from the transmission to the frame and then up, I'm going to have it just come up and go up and over the transmission to the master cylinder. So I'm going to do that. Let's see. Oh man, this nose, my schnoz this day, I'll tell you. Oh, what else do I got? So I got wire harness. I got exhaust manifold gaskets. I went with Molly's off of Amazon. They were about $10 shipped. Yeah, that's really it. That's that's where we're at on this thing. I'm just continuing the wiring process, and we're so close. The problem I'm going to run into, and what I got to do this time coming up, is I got to actually remove the blower. The injector harness won't clip to the injectors with the blower on it. The blower is just the clips are too tall, and they won't clear the blower. So I'm just going to pull the blower and the lower pan, and I'm going to take a little time to actually paint the blower. I'm going to take the blower to work and shoot it with some paint. In a previous video, I mentioned that I was going to run it without a boost control because the Xterras use an electronic boost control, controlled by the computer. The computer looks for certain parameters from the sensors, and it will actually operate an actuator that will bypass the blower to keep boost from running constantly. I was thinking I would just bypass it since I don't have that electrical connector or any kind of circuitry that's going to control that. But I was kind of thinking, and I'm going to have to work this out in my head, but just running the vacuum, regular vacuum for that controller. So instead of using an electronically controlled vacuum, I'm just going to hook it right up to the lower intake manifold and use engine vacuum to control it. Because from what I hear, if you don't bypass it at idle, the teeth inside the snout of the supercharger will make a rattling noise just because of the pulsation of the air coming out of it. And I'd rather have it sound good. I don't want it to sound like it's chattering its teeth all day long. So I'm going to mess with that idea, see how that goes. Yeah. So that's my homework that I'm working on right now. Well, not at the moment. I'm kind of relaxing on my couch and having a cup of coffee. Old school. We won't talk about the old channel name, but in the old days, I always had a cup of coffee, so. Good stuff. You'll notice I'm sitting in the library here. This is the library/game room. This is where all my service manuals are, just behind my head. I have all the trucks going from 73 until 99. This is where I do all my mad scientist research, and I have a lot of stuff going back many years. So it's kind of like I'm able to sit here and I'm like, will this work? And then I'll look into a service manual from 92 and then compare it to a service manual from 98 and see if there's any kind of similarity, see if I can make things work. In Junkyard news, I came across another blower setup. I was at the Junkyard probably about an hour north of here looking for the power steering pump bracket for Pathfinder pickup. I knew there was 4 Xterras at this yard, and the fourth one happened to be an unplucked Supercharged SC. It was not a 5-speed, it was a regular automatic, but when I popped the hood, nobody had been in there. It must have just gotten placed in the yard or something, so I grabbed the blower and the intake tube. I went back the next week and got the lower pan, the injectors, and the lower intake manifold, and the pulleys. So I'm hoping that maybe once this weather gets to be back in the double digits again, I can go back up there again and grab the valve covers. And then finally there's another Supercharged that actually donated a lot of parts to Pathfinder pickup in another yard south of that yard. And I'm going to grab the crank pulley off of that. So I'll have the complete setup just to sit for a rainy day. And I did it all for, pennies on the dollar. So you always got to pop the hood on these vehicles. When you go to the junkyard, pop the hood, look at it, see what's going on. You never know what you're going to find. So this kind of like puts me ahead in another project that I may get around to before I totally become an old man with diapers. Is that I wanted to build a 3.7, a VG37 ER two-wheel drive. So I have a two-wheel drive pan. I got to figure out, there's so much stuff that I have to figure out. This is all just on paper. It's not even like well thought out yet. But if I can do a two-wheel drive VG37 ER and drop it in a two-wheel drive hardbody, I have the transmission already. I have the transmission cross member. I have mounts. I have the block. I have the heads. I have the camshafts. I have the pistons. Well, I don't have the correct size pistons yet, but I have the crankshaft. I have all the pieces to put it together and have it run crappy. except I would have to have the block punched out, and then I'd have to replace the pistons, obviously. But I have connecting rods, crankshaft, the whole 9 yards there. So if I get the rest of the setup, I can do a supercharged 2-wheel drive 3.7 liter VG engine. That's just a dream for right now. It may never come to fruition, but I do have a lot of parts that I could use to put that together. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the spring. I got some other outdoor plans, but right now it's just sitting around waiting for the snow to clear, accumulating parts, working on the things that I can work on, and then, crossing my fingers that the things that I'm thinking of are actually going to work. But I'm thinking that I've set a goal. It's kind of a long distance goal. I mean, a lot of people would be like, yeah, I'll have it running by the end of February. That's not realistic. I actually only see this truck once every 2 weeks because that's the schedule that me and my friends have for hanging out at this shop. And that's where I keep it because it's got heat. It's got a concrete floor. You guys have seen the shop. It's my buddy Justin's shop, and he's got a lot of crazy projects as well. And he allows me to keep my stuff there. So I figured that I would set my goal to have this thing running by May. Maybe I can crank it over by the end of February and actually see how it cranks and maybe run it for a second. But I mean, like, when I say May running, I mean it has the radiator in it, has the hoses, coolant, the clutch is all plumbed, the headers are on, maybe the exhaust is not hooked up yet, but the headers are on, all the wiring's done, the belts are all sorted out, fuel lines are stretched and all that. Oh, speaking of fuel, I did get a fuel filter for this thing. I went with a Fleet Guard, just because my company sells those, and we actually had that filter in stock, which I mean, they fit Fords and some Hinos and Toyotas and stuff, so I was surprised that we had it on the shelf, seeming that I work for a Navistar dealer. That worked out good in my favor. And then once I get it running and moving under its own power, I plan on taking it over to a buddy's house, the same one that I jumped a few vehicles off of a ramp, and we do bumper cars every couple of years. We'll go out and buy a $200 piece of garbage and just go run around in the yard and just crash into each other and have fun. I'm going to take it over to that yard and do some tests, make sure, sort it out, see how it's going to run, see if it needs any more, actual mechanical pieces addressed. And then I plan to bring it here to my shop, where I will continue fitting it out, where it will get the deck on the bed, all the wiring, like the lights and brake lights and all that stuff will get fleshed out, so the truck is actually like here. And then that way, over the summer, I can work on it almost every day, because I can come home from work, I'll have sun until close to 9:30 in the middle of summer, and then I'll just go out to the barn and turn wrenches on it and make sure it's all good. If I got to get parts for it, I can just run out immediately and just change everything as I need to, because it's going to have a few things that I'm going to be able to, most of the stuff I can tackle here. But right now, it's nice to have a nice concrete floor. It's nice to have my welder right close by. My barn's not plumbed for that yet, but Justin's barn is. It's nice to have an air compressor. It's nice to have some extra hands, just in case there's something heavy or something needs to be, manhandled into the truck, which I think we're well past that point now. I think we're in the electrical phase. We're in the pouring coolants and fluids into this thing phase. There's no more lifting. There's no more, heave-hoeing things around. It's pretty mechanically solid at this point. So, as I said, I'm very sorry. No videos from the shop lately. I actually did a live video for Instagram last time I was out as a walk around. If you guys want to see what it's all about, just go and check out Rainmaker_D21. It gives you kind of a heads up on where the project is at the moment. And then, I went there last night and found out we weren't hanging out that night. That was stupid of me. Blew a whole bunch of money on Taco Bell for the fat guys there, and there were no fat guys there to consume Taco Bell, so this fat guy consumed Taco Bell. Leave me a comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. And I'm hoping that I can also get back into work on patches. That's been a slow moving thing. I figure once tax return comes in, I can send the head out, get the head taken care of, and then I can start reassembly. and then we'll be driving that truck around again in the spring. I really need to. I've got things I got to move around, and I don't want to have to rely on Green, and I don't want to have to rely on other people. So we'll be having that come along. But Pathfinder pickup, still a moving project. Still moving along slowly, but we're getting closer every day. So thanks again. Like, share, and subscribe. Tune in. Tell your friends, or give me a thumbs down. I don't really care. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.